Great. Looks like we are all ready to go. How's it going, everyone? My name is Brianna Keaton. I'm the fitness coordinator at Red Rocks Community College. I am also a certified health and wellness coach and a fitness nutrition specialist. I'm going to be bringing you the What's Cooking segment for today, in which we'll be making sheet pan chicken fajitas. So, as you all may be aware, there's a lot that's happening this week. We've been celebrating National Hispanic Heritage Month through our Salsa and Salsa engagement events. We've been celebrating Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. And so this particular segment pretty much fits into all of that. When it comes down to the Salsa and Salsa celebration and celebrating National Hispanic Heritage Month, a little bit of history about fajitas. This essentially came into play around the 1930s and 40s. Um, in West Texas, a few Mexican ranch workers were often paid partial salary with a tough flank meat, and so hence flank steak. And this is a really tough piece of meat if you've never had flank before. So it was pretty astonishing how they were able to take that cut of meat, mix it with, or add to it salsa or some sort of verde, in addition to a tortilla, handmade tortillas, and boom, fajitas was born. It really didn't become popular until like the 1960s or 1970s. And it since just blown up. It's become a staple for that culture in addition to, within today's culture. And so we make fajitas a lot. And so one of the things that I wanted to do was kind of put a healthy spin on it. And so instead of using flank steak, we're going to be using chicken for our fajitas today, kind of using a little bit of a more healthier approach. And that's going to be really nice. Again, as it ties into suicide prevention awareness, we know that one wall of resistance is, to adopt a healthier lifestyle by being physically active as well as adopting a balanced diet. So sheet pan chicken fajitas is definitely one to serve as a pretty healthy option for you. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as far as, how you can make this more of a vegan or vegetarian option for yourself. If you are lactose intolerant, or maybe you have celiac disease and you can't use a traditional flour tortilla. So hopefully we'll get into all of that today. On our social media accounts, I did post our ingredients list. And so for this particular recipe, we're going to be using chicken breast. For this recipe. In addition to, we'll be using peppers. So I'm going to be using baby bell peppers. And you can use regular bell peppers if you'd like. I tend to find these a little bit more sweeter and ones that I like. We're going to also be using a yellow onion. You can go as big or as small as you'd like. Personally, I'm not a huge onion fan, and so I go for the small onions to kind of use other vegetables as well as the meat to drown out that onion. We'll also be using chili powder, pepper, oil, salt, flour tortillas or corn tortillas, whichever you'd like. In addition to, you're gonna need your oven for this. And so if you have a broiler on your oven, you're gonna go ahead and turn that on high. So I have mine on high right now and it's ready to go. If you don't have a broiler, that's okay. You can actually bake this. You're not gonna get that nice char of the vegetables, but you still can use your baking oven. Just turn that to 400 degrees, pop all these items in. It will take a little bit longer since it cooks from the bottom rather than the top, but you certainly can use that option. But for this particular recipe, we're going to use the broiler on high option. All right. I also have a lime that I'm going to use to squeeze over the peppers and onions as well as the chicken. That lime really gives it that nice acid base. It tastes really good to drizzle that over it. So we'll be doing that today. And then I have some additional optional complementary items, if you will, like your cheese and your guacamole. And so we'll get to that towards the end. So first, we're just going to start off by making our seasoning base. And so in order to do that, we'll start off with our chili powder. We'll do about 1 tablespoon of chili powder. From there, we'll do 1 tablespoon of pepper. Actually, it's teaspoon, forgive me. And then we'll do 2 teaspoons of salt. I actually really like to use kosher salt. You can use regular table salt if you like, Himalayan salt, whatever works for you. And I'm gonna use my teaspoon here just to kind of mix that up. You can use your finger, doesn't matter. Get a nice little mix there. What we're going to be using this for, we're going to be using this for both our vegetables in addition to our chicken. And so you can add some spices to this if you'd like. It doesn't have to be simply your pepper, salt, and chili powder. Like I'm going to add a little bit of onion powder as well as some garlic powder. So you kind of want to avoid garlic salt because we just put 2 teaspoons of kosher salt. So we don't want this to be too salty. Okay, mix that up really good. You can also use cumin for this as well if you want to really give it some of those flavors. If you don't have these seasonings, you can also use like a taco seasoning kind of packet. If you have that available, that'll work just fine as well. So this is our seasoning for, like I said, our vegetables as well as our chicken. Now that we're done with this, we're just gonna go ahead and set that to the side. Then we're gonna go ahead and use our peppers. And again, you don't have to use baby peppers. You can certainly use regular bell peppers if that's cheaper and more available for you. But we're going to go ahead and use regular peppers. Now, I like to use a chef's knife. I think that that's a lot easier rather than using a smaller knife, sparing knife. So we're going to go ahead and just cut the tops off, and then we'll get rid of the seeds. So we have some seeds in here, and so I'm just going to off camera in like a little bowl. I'm just taking out the seeds with my finger and getting those out. And then I'm gonna go ahead and just kind of cut these in quarters. You can certainly cut them in halves. You don't have to cut them in quarters. I just personally prefer them to be cut in quarters. That's just me. And with the peppers, we're gonna be using about a pound. That's usually about 1 packet. You're buying this from the grocery store, about 1 packet, and that should be about a pound. I have to forgive my knife here. I actually probably should have sharpened it before I started. And it's okay if you get a couple of seeds left behind. I mean, we don't want a lot of seeds in there. That kind of a little annoying, but just take out as much as you possibly can. Like I said, if you have like 1 or 2 left over, it's not the end of the world. Now, let's say you're saying to yourself, well, hey, Bree, I don't necessarily like peppers. Is there another alternative for me to use? And I mean, obviously, you certainly can use other alternatives, other vegetables. You can use squash and maybe even some zucchini for a recipe like this. That would go really, really well. Mix up those options. Whatever is most comfortable for you. Obviously, it's a little bit more of an untraditional route for fajitas, but it certainly is an option that you can take. And I'm just cutting these in quarters. We're cutting about roughly about a pound. I think for mine, I weighed out about, I think it was about 0.6. Okay, so a little less than a pound for mine. Totally up to you. That one didn't have any seeds in it, surprisingly. It was all in the top, so. And you'll just keep cleaning these out. Don't say you're considering doing this recipe, but maybe adding more vegetables. Again, you certainly can. You can even substitute the meat out. So if you don't want to use flank steak, or maybe you don't want to use chicken because you are vegetarian or vegan, you can certainly use vegetables as a substitute. If you wanted to just do the peppers and the onions, or even adding that squash and zucchini, you can do that. Good meat substitutes for vegans and vegetarians. For vegetarians and vegans, obviously tofu is a good substitute. Right? You just kind of press out that water in the tofu and then season it up really well. And you can use that as a meat-based substitute. Another option as well is you can use mushrooms. Mushrooms are actually a really good substitute for meat, in addition to beans. The beans are a really good substitute as well, full of protein, definitely a great option. So those are some suggestions if you're looking for different plant-based options. Make it really helpful. Put these up. Once we're done with the peppers, we'll put that on our sheet pan, which I already have ready. So behind me, I have a sheet pan, and it's covered with foil. And that's what we're going to be using to cook our items today. All right. So that's pretty much it with my peppers. So I have all of those ready. So I'm going to turn my back on you guys real quick, and I'm just going to put those peppers out on my sheet. So this is what it will look like. You'll have that on your sheet pan. Just kind of mix it up there. And we'll cut our onion up, and we'll add that on next. All right. So with our onion, I'm just going to use my chef knife here. With our onion, we can go ahead and just cut that in half to start. Oh, I need to sharpen it. I think it's a lot easier to get the skin off of the onion when you cut it in half versus if you cut it from the end. If you're a composter, obviously you can use this compost. Not throw that in the trash there. Skin off. Chop this end. Oh, I cut a lot off, so go ahead and just start cutting our onions here. Like I said, I personally am not a humongous onion fan, so I like them to be kind of finely chopped if I can. That's just me. I really like that taste of onions. Certainly feel free to make them as big or as small as you'd like. You also want to be really, really careful when you're using a knife at home. And try very hard to keep your fingers out of the way and almost tucked in. So if I use this style of chopping, you see how my fingers are kind of tucked back. Right? Don't want to get any blood on our onions. Okay. Have any accidents. Once you're done with your onion there, just like the peppers, we're going to take those over and kind of just spread those out. Next, we're going to bring the sheet pan over to the camera that you all can see. So now that we have our onions and our vegetables nicely spread out, we're going to grab that seasoning that we had earlier. We're going to only use half of it. So we're not going to use the whole thing. We're going to use about half of it just to kind of sprinkle over those peppers and onions. Looks really good. Once we're done with that, now we're just going to use about a tablespoon of extra virgin olive oil. And so I kind of just eyeball it. Use about a tablespoon there just to drizzle over the vegetables. Then we're going to mix those up. I use my fingers. You can totally use a wooden spoon or to mix that up. Fun fact, if you want to make it to where your onion doesn't make you cry, if you actually freeze the onion right before you cut into it, it actually slows down the chemical compound that's in it that makes for tears. I actually didn't get a chance to freeze mine, and so I got a couple of tears happening behind the camera. Awesome. So again, Right, so now that we have those onions nice and prepared, as well as the peppers, we're gonna go ahead and place this into our broiler. Again, your broiler is gonna be on high, and you should put this on the top shelf, okay? So this should go on the top shelf. You're gonna keep it in for about 10 minutes just to get a nice, pretty char on those peppers as well as those onions. You do wanna make sure that you check back on it periodically. Okay, we don't want our peppers or onions to burn, and so make sure that you constantly take a look at that and check back on those vegetables as we're going about. I'm just gonna go ahead and clean my onion, or excuse my onion, my chef's knife. I'm gonna go ahead and clean that up, and then I'm gonna use a separate cutting board for cutting our chicken breast here. So we'll go ahead and just place those chicken breasts right here on the cutting board, and we're gonna cut 1/4 inch thick. So we don't want to cut too thick, but we also don't want to cut them too thin. Okay, so about 1/4 inch, really good. And again, just be really careful with your knife. We don't want anyone cutting themselves. You have a dull knife like I do, you don't have to worry. Cut to the side. And like I said, you can certainly use chicken breasts. In this case, we want to kind of have more of a healthier option, give us more nutrients, but kind of cut back on that fat. Even with the tortillas that I chose, they are kind of a low-fat tortilla, and they have lots of dietary fiber in it. And so I find that to be a little bit of a better option for me personally and what I'm trying to get out of my fitness goals, while also kind of satisfying my need, if you will, of really craving fajitas. This is a great little healthy option for you. Finish cutting through chicken. Awesome. So I'm just gonna place the chicken back on the plate here. Right, and then we'll use the rest of our seasoning that we had to season the chicken breast. Use all of that, get a nice good mix on it. You can use your fingers if you want. If not, you can certainly use some tongs, kind of help mix that in. I like to use a plate. I know a lot of people like to use a bowl, but strange, I know. Good. So we're gonna get that seasoning nice and mixed in there. Once we're done with that, we're gonna take our last tablespoon of extra virgin olive oil, kind of drizzle that on top. Again, I've been periodically opening my stove or my oven here to check on those vegetables just to make sure that everything looks nice. You don't start a fire or anything. You do have it on high, and so you just want to make sure that you're checking that occasionally. I hope that my fire alarm doesn't go off, but when your broiler's on high, depending on how close it is to your fire alarm, it can go off periodically. Don't be alarmed. Again, you just have to make sure that you're checking that oven constantly. Okay, good. So it looks like we got a good little mix on the chicken. So at this point, we'll go ahead and check in on our vegetables so that we can get ready to sprinkle that chicken on top so that we can throw it back into the oven for about another, I'd say about 5 or so minutes. It just depends on your broiler. For some people, you'll need it longer or in the oven longer. For others, not so much. So, you can flip it over. Awesome. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and pull my peppers and onions out of that. Oh, that looks great. That looks awesome. You can see it's already starting to get a nice little char on those peppers, and that's exactly what we want to see, okay? So at this point, we'll take our chicken, we'll just spread that out throughout the pan. It's a really hot pan, so be careful. I realize there's a pan on top of my cutting board, just so you guys can see. Typically, we try to do this stuff in a cooking kitchen, cooking demo kitchen that's on campus at Red Rock. Decided to go ahead and do it at home today. Right. Beautiful. So once we get that chicken all plated out on that sheet pan, we'll go ahead and throw this back into the oven. Again, this is going to go on the first shelf so that your broiler can really cook through that meat. We'll leave that in for about 5 or so minutes, depending on your broiler. Awesome. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and wash our chef knife. Now, we used it first with our vegetables, and then we used it again to cut our chicken. And so before we cut into anything else, we do want to make sure that we wash that knife and rinse it really well so we can prevent any cross contamination. Right? So I did flip my cutting board over here. And so I'm going to take one of our limes. And so you should have 2 limes in total, one for little wedges that you'll use when you're serving the dish. And then the other, which is this one on the cutting board, we're going to use this to kind of juice over our chicken, peppers, and onions once those come out of the oven. All right. So I'll go ahead and place those to the side as well. So at this point, I'll go ahead and prep our tortillas by getting those in the oven. So I'm going to just use some foil in order to do that and pull out my tortillas. I like to use the low carb flour tortillas. You can get this from the grocery store. This is La Tortilla Factory. That is the brand of it. I really like it because it has a lot of dietary fiber, probably about 32%. That's roughly about, what, 9 grams, I think? Yeah, roughly about 9 to 10 grams. And it's really low in fat as well. So it's a pretty decent option in comparison to the traditional flour tortilla. So we're going to put these in the oven just so we can get them nice and toasty. Again, we have our broiler on, and so we're going to want to put this on the second shelf rather than the first shelf. So we'll take this, we'll close it up real nice. Again, if you have a dietary restriction, maybe you have celiac disease, maybe you just want a low carb option, you can certainly use this. If you have celiac disease, obviously you're not going to use any flour at all. And so if you want to use a corn substitute, like a corn tortilla, you certainly can use that as well. All right. So let's go ahead and pop this into our oven. Again, bottom shelf. Just want those to be nice and warm. Right. Okay. Next, we are going to pull out our items that we'll use to kind of top our fajitas. And so I got a little bowl here as well as, little, oh, there we go. And it's a little grater. And then I have my Monterey Jack cheese. And so, I'm just being fancy here for the sake of the video. Feel free to use, pre-bought shredded cheese. You don't have to use the fresh blocked version. It really does give it a nice touch. But like I said, it's not necessary. So you can use this option or you can use the pre-bought. I like Monterey Jack. This is kind of a reduced fat version of cheese. And so you're not getting the full fat within this. If you're looking for low fat or no fat, mozzarella is a great option as well. And so feel free to use that. Cottage cheese is another one. So I'm just going to go ahead and start grating. I really like this grater. You can use a traditional one. I like this one because I really like finely shredded cheese. I think it really gives the dish the quality taste. Maybe it's just a psychological thing. Either way, it works. We'll just kind of shred that up. You get a little mix. I mean, I like it really fine. And so again, you don't have to make it this fine. You can use a traditional grater that you have at home. Awesome. Cool. And once we have our cheese shredded, we should be ready to go. I'm going to actually pull out some items that I prepared earlier that we can utilize to help us top this delicious meal that we're getting ready to bake in. I actually made some fresh guacamole. I bought some store-bought, salsa, and so you can do whatever you please. You can get store-bought if you'd like, but I like to use fresh salsa rather than salsa that's in a container. It's a lot healthier, a lot more nutritional value for you. In addition to those limes we were talking about, so that second lime, I just kind of cut those into some wedges. And then lastly, your sour cream. Now, personally, I use Greek yogurt. I use either a zero fat or a 5% fat Greek yogurt. Fage is probably my favorite brand. And so you can use that as a healthy sour cream alternative. And in fact, I've been doing that for, I'd say, about a few years now, and it really has been a game changer for my nutrition. It tastes great, nice and fresh. And so something to consider if you really like sour cream like I do, a good healthy option would be to use a Greek yogurt base, your substitute for sour cream. And then we have our cheese. And so that's essentially it. And so I'll kind of put these to the side here. Okay, it looks like we're coming up on time with that chicken. Now, some of you may wonder, like, well, how do I know if the chicken is done? I don't necessarily want to eat any raw chicken. You want to use a, thermometer if you have one. The temperature should be about 165 degrees when you put it into that piece of chicken. You could also just do it the old-fashioned way and just cut into a piece of chicken and see if there's any pink left over. If there's any pink, obviously you want to put that back in the oven for, let's say, a few more minutes and then check it again. You can also, well, yeah, those are kind of your options. Those are the easiest options, shall I say. But if you leave it in for about I'd say about 5 to 8 minutes, it should be good. Now, like I said, depending on your broiler, you may have a really hot broiler. And so you want to check it every so often because you don't want that to catch heat or for you to burn it or overcook that chicken. Okay. So let's go ahead and check our chicken as well as our tortillas. They've been in there as well. We should get a nice char on top of our vegetables as well. Okay. So as I'm looking at mine, I'm gonna keep mine in for about another minute and then they should be good. For the tortillas, those are nice and warm. Awesome. And again, the whole point of warming them up is just to kind of get them to separate a bit. Oh yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's great. And if you don't want to do this option, you can also heat them up. Like if you have a gas stove, you can kind of heat them up on the direct flame. Wouldn't recommend that if it's your first time doing it, but you certainly can. Like I said, you can leave these in the oven a little bit longer. I personally like them the way that they are now. So I'm just going to set mine to the side here. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and just grab my chicken out from the oven. Awesome. That looks wonderful. Do you see that char? Looks really, really good. And so you can get a nice char going when you use your broiler instead of baking it. And so this looks absolutely incredible. It smells delicious, and I can't wait to make one. So let's just go ahead and put this all together, shall we? So take all of my tortillas and I have a plate here. Some of that chicken, and that looks done for me. And so again, please feel free to check it if you're not confident about whether or not your chicken is cooked all the way through. You certainly can check that. Smell delicious. Wish I could share smells with you guys, especially some of the charred ones. Awesome. Great. So once we're done with that, then we can go ahead and start diving into our little fixing options. And so I'm just going to use some of that cheese that I just freshly grated. Some of that. Spread that out. Awesome. Have a little bit of that guacamole. And if you haven't been watching our salsa and salsa segments this week, we did post a video for how to make fresh guacamole and how to make fresh salsa or pico de gallo. So feel free to check that out. I'll add those links back to our link tree, which is the link within our bio. So feel free to check those out if you're interested in making your own fresh salsa or fresh guacamole. It's really easy, very fresh, and it tastes amazing. In those videos, they also show you how to create your own chips, which is phenomenal. It's super easy. You can make those chips at home. All you need is kind of a water bottle with some water and salt just to keep that salty texture, or excuse me, salty flavor to those chips. It's phenomenal. So check those out if you're interested in making that. So this is our sheet pan chicken fajita, nice and easy. Takes us about 30 minutes. I mean, really, that's it. And then you're good to go. And so I'm going to do a little tester here just to make sure it's safe. Oh, that is amazing. Incredible. Really good. Wow. Fresh, healthier option for you guys, and definitely something that I'm excited about. This makes enough. Oh man, I feel like I'm smacking. Sorry. So this particular recipe makes enough for about four servings. And all in all, you only spent about $8 making and preparing this entire meal. It's about $2 per serving. So it really is a great option if you're alone and maybe you're by yourself. This is a great meal prep option. If you have a family, feel free to just double up on those ingredients so that you can make more and be able to prepare more. Maybe you're not much of a meal prepper. This is a great dinner option, as well as if you wanted to utilize this for a lunch option. It's fairly healthy, really good for you as well. So I thought that that was awesome. I really hope that you guys enjoy watching this. I enjoy putting it together. Oh, you know what I forgot to do? That's what I'm missing. I just saw it. That's totally what I'm missing is that juice from the lime. So I apologize. I totally forgot about that piece. I'm pretty good with just going right over it. Actually take a lime wedge and put that right on my tortilla. Excellent. So again, if you're interested in more videos like this, please let us know. We'd be happy to put them together. We do have more What's Cooking segments in the near future. So make sure that you visit us on our social media accounts at RRCC Student Rec on Instagram and Facebook. You can also follow us online via our website, www.rrcc.edu/SRC. We do have our program guide available to let you know of any other offerings that we have coming up. So again, I hope you guys enjoyed this segment today. I enjoyed putting it together, and we'll see you soon. Have a good one.